Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today I've got a tag for you, the Thrilling Thrillers tag. So this was originally created by Nicole at A Beautiful Chaos of Books. And I was tagged by AJ Dunn Reads and Writes, who is a big fan of thrillers and who is running the Killer Reads book club at the moment, which is working through the list of the top thrillers from Penguin. So do check out his channel if you like thrillers and you're not already a subscriber of his. So there are 8 questions for me to go through. So let me go through those. But before I start, I wanted to talk a bit about what does thriller mean? Because it's one of those phrases or genres that gets tossed around a lot. And I think it's either very specific or very broad, depending on who you talk to. So I think nowadays it tends to be used to describe a particular sort of kind of domestic suspense novel. That seems to be what publishers push as thrillers. When I was kind of in my formative years as a reader, for me a thriller was a kind of action adventure or espionage type book. But it can also be used as a very broad term to cover any book that's exciting, which clearly could be sci-fi, could be horror, could be a literary fiction work. And when you look at that list, at that Penguin list that I mentioned earlier, of thrillers, there's all sorts of different books on there. So The Shining by Stephen King is on there, for example, which I personally wouldn't call a thriller, albeit I see why they've included it in that list. Anyway, that's a bit of an aside. Let me get on with the questions. So the first question is, what was the last thriller that you bought? So this is a book that is winging its way to me at the moment from an eBay seller. It is Crawl Space by Herbert Lieberman, which is a suspense novel from the early 70s, which I think is about a young couple who invite a kind of strange handyman into their house, and bizarre happenings ensue. So it's a book I've always meant to read. I've never read any Herbert Lieberman. I've been aware of him for a long time from having seen his paperbacks in second-hand bookshops when I was growing up. And I think there's a film of Crawl Space as well. I can't remember who directed it, but it's got Klaus Kinski in it at his most deranged, I believe. So it's one of those books I've always wanted to read, and I happened to chance across it. I was looking for something else, but happened to find it on eBay. So I've picked that up and will hopefully be reading it soon. Right, next one. Show us the thriller you most recently added to your TBR. So I don't really add books to my TBR. I just buy books, or get them out of the library, or whatever. I don't, and I should get better at this. I don't add books to my TBR and then think about buying them at some point in the future. If it occurs to me that I might want to read a book, I'll just buy it, which is why I've got so many books behind me, I suspect. So the last thriller that actually landed with me, so I suppose Crawl Space, arguably you could say, I suppose Crawl Space, maybe it's been on my TBR for years based on what I just said, and it's that I've only just bought it. The last thriller that came through the letterbox is this one, The Sharpshooter number 11 Triggerman by Bruno Rossi, which looks fantastic. Isn't that a wonderful cover? And the seller, the eBay seller, sent it to me in this plastic bag, which I've not opened it yet, because I think it being wrapped in plastic makes it even more exciting somehow. But I do think that's just a really phenomenal cover. And the blurb on the back starts with the phrase "bullet for a killer," which is pretty awesome as well. So this looks like a good mob-based thriller. Okay, question 3. What thriller did you have high expectations for, but ultimately let you down? So I was trying to think of a more recent example, and I couldn't really, but one that definitely sprung to mind, which is a book I really didn't enjoy at all, was Girl on a Train by Paula Hawkins, which I thought was terrible, and completely unworthy of the huge success that it had. I really didn't enjoy it at all. I thought it was cliched. I thought its use of an unreliable narrator wasn't great. I just really didn't enjoy it at all. And I know that has a lot of fans, so if you're one of them, apologies. But yeah, I thought it was pretty pretty crappy, to be honest with you. Right, moving on then. What tropes do you love and hate in thriller books? So I've got a couple of examples for each of these. So I love amnesiac protagonists. So I love books like The Bourne Identity or something like that start with the hero having no memory of anything, and the book, spending the book trying to figure out the mystery of their life, and whilst fighting off lots of bad guys or whatever. So yeah, I really like thrillers based around amnesia. And I also really like thrillers with an everyman hero or every person hero. So thrillers where the protagonist is a normal person who suddenly gets thrown into a completely crazy situation, and has to survive. I've always enjoyed, well, I always enjoy, clearly there's some that are rubbish, but I often enjoy thrillers with that kind of premise. And in terms of tropes that I hate, so I generally don't enjoy, and I guess Girl on a Train is an example of this kind of domestic, the modern domestic thriller, particularly where there's stuff happening behind closed doors and you don't know what's going on. So thrillers that primarily revolve around relationships and families and things like that, I tend not to enjoy those very much, and they are, as I said, very popular at the moment. And I also don't enjoy thrillers that well, I wouldn't say I don't enjoy them, because sometimes I do. I think there are some great thrillers that do this, but I think it's a really tired old trope, and that is, the male, typically protagonists, wife or daughter or whatever, getting kidnapped and them having to go and save them. So I think it's something that has is an overhang from the Western genre. It's a trope that's often used in Westerns. And has come to be a trope in thrillers as well, and I think it's one that's definitely had its day, and I think writers recognise that it's had its day, so you don't see it so much anymore. But yeah, that's another one I'm not a big fan of. So next question, recommend an underrated thriller. So I've got a couple here, and I'm not sure that they're necessarily underrated, but more just books that I don't really see talked about. So the first one is Blood Red Rivers by Jean-Christophe Granger, I think you pronounce his surname. So this is a French novel from 1997. I think it was first translated into English a couple of years later, so in 1999. But it's fantastic. So it was filmed as well with Jean Reno in it. So it's a wonderful mix of different kind of thriller subgenres. So it's kind of a serial killer book, but it's set in the mountains. So it's got all the kind of adventure type stuff about, trying to survive against the elements and that sort of thing. But it's also got serial killer stuff thrown in. It's just completely gripping. It's not too long. It's like kind of 300 pages-ish, I think. So perfect length for a thriller, and just really, really enjoyable. And then another one, which again I think is not talked about nearly as much, is A Simple Plan by Scott Smith. So you see his other book, The Ruined, talked about a lot in horror circles, but A Simple Plan doesn't seem to get talked about much at all. Again, it's been filmed, so the movie version was directed by Sam Raimi, who's a director I really like. And it's a great story about this kind of couple of friends, I can't remember if it's a couple or more, I think it's a couple of friends who find some money, which clearly has come, has been, or is the result of some sort of criminal activity, and they decide to take it, and it's about what happens to them after that, and it just gets, the story just, and the suspense and tension just ramp up and ramp up and ramp up as the book goes on. It's absolutely fantastic. So that's another one that I definitely recommend. Okay, next question. Pick 3 thrillers from your shelves, 2 you've read and 1 you haven't. Get your viewers to comment which one they think you haven't read. So a bit of a game for you at home. So I've got 3 books here. So I didn't bother going up in the attic to pluck stuff from the attic. I just plucked stuff from the shelves around me. So yeah, 3 books. So tell me which one you think I have read. So I've got Alice in Jeopardy by Ed McBain, which is Ed McBain's my favourite writer. This is one of his final books. I have A Drink Before the War by Dennis Lehane, which is the first of the Kinsey and Gennaro thrillers. And I have Cuba Libre by Elmore Leonard, sort of famous Western and crime writer, which is a thriller set in Havana. So, those three, you have to tell me in the comments which one you think I have already read. Right, moving on then. Next question. So question 7, people are often intimidated by the thriller genre. Recommend a thriller for beginners. So I'm not sure people are intimidated by the thriller genre, are they? It feels to me like it's one of the more accessible genres. But in terms of one I would heartily recommend, and a fairly new release at that, Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. So this is a fantastic book. I don't think I've ever done a review of it on the channel, but I've definitely talked about it on the channel before. So this is an incredibly gripping thriller about these two guys, one who's black, one who's white, who team up because their sons have been killed by someone, you don't know who at the start, and their sons were a gay couple who were in a relationship, and the two dads, who are, as you'd imagine, older guys, have struggled to come to terms with their son's sexuality, but they get together and team up despite their differences in order to investigate the death of their sons and to get revenge. And it's just fantastic. It's got a great kind of like odd couple buddy relationship at the heart of it. It's really emotional. It addresses some really interesting social issues, but it's also a fantastically enjoyable and action-packed thriller. So yeah, Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby, definitely recommended. Next question: what is your all-time favourite thriller? So the answer to this is I don't know. I could not pick one. I have picked one, but I couldn't pick one. So I've picked another book, which I think is a book that I remember being absolutely gripped by, which is also a book that I think is not talked about anymore. So like the two I mentioned earlier, that's the reason why I've picked this one, because I think it deserves more attention. And that is Green River Rising by Tim Willocks, which is a novel about a prison riot. So it's about a guy who, I believe, if I remember rightly, is a doctor who's in the prison. I think he's actually imprisoned rather than being the prison doctor. But there's a prison riot and it's about him trying to survive it. And it is so exciting. I really need to read it again because I haven't read it for years. I recently rebought it on my Kindle and I definitely need to reread it. So yes, Green River Rising by Tim Willocks. Check it out. So that was my answers to those 8 questions. So now it comes for me to tag some fellow thriller lovers. So I'm going to tag Michael Romeo Loves Books, because I know he enjoys thrillers. Duncan McCurdy, because similarly I know he likes thrillers a lot and has got some fantastic ones in his collection. And Jeff Reed as well, who's done a series of videos about James Bond books and has talked about other thrillers on his channel as well. Now Jeff, I don't think, has posted a video for a while, so hopefully this will spur him out of hibernation and get him posting again, because his videos are fantastic. So that's it from me. Hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know what your favourite thrillers are, and if you've read any of the ones I talked about, see if you can guess which of those 3 books I have read and which ones I haven't. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well. Hope you're really good stuff, and I will speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.